Hello, guys. You're welcome to Photographics Academy. All right, so I'm so excited about what we're going to be looking at today. If you've been following us for some time now, you're going to notice that the previous video we did was an introductory part to a very interesting series that we just kickstarted, taking photography from the basic photography 101, like photography 101, taking it down to the basic, trying to go through all the rules that guides the foundations and the basics of being able to achieve a very great image and being able to tell a very beautiful story with your images. So the last time we looked at some very important things around the exposure triangle, how you can blend and complement your ISO, your aperture, your speed to get a very nice exposure for your images, how those works and what each of those do. So if you didn't go through our last video, I really advise you to go back to the video description below and watch the previous video. It is very necessary for you to watch it because this is the next one you need to know after knowing your exposure triangle. And that brings us to what we have today, which is composition. So composition is simply how you arrange your image in front of your frame or in front of your lens to give it a visual impression, to give it a visual weight, to make sure that your image is able to tell the story and convey the feeling you have in your heart or in your mind when you were shooting the image. The composition is also the skill that you use to place the objects you want the eyes to see exactly where you want the eyes to see them, and it will not look distracting. Okay, so without wasting your time, there are many rules of composition, but today we are going to be focusing on the very basic ones and very necessary ones that you need to know to get started as a basic photographer. So as you are growing in your journey, you keep learning the other one, the golden circle, and a whole lot of other ones that you will even find out yourself and inculcate into your photography. So today, the number one we're going to be looking at is rule of thirds. The rule of third, amazing composition rule. So rule of third simply means placing your creating a diagonal line in front of your image. Most of cameras, when you get them, especially when we are shooting in live mode, you are going to notice that they have some grid lines in front of them. Those grid lines are just specifically to give you composition tips. So if you are doing a rule of third simply means creating this kind of lines for your image and placing your object in the intercepting point. Placing the object you want the eyes to see in the intercepting point. So if you look at this image, the image is beautiful. It's everywhere. You are looking at an elephant. You are looking at the moon or up in the sky. You are looking at the landscape. It's just there, flat, straight, wide. But if you want to draw your eyes and tell a story with this image, just look at the way it will automatically change the moment I apply the rule of third on it. So the moment I move this slider until I have the elephant properly situated in the intercepting point over here, and probably try to see if I can bring the moon into this particular intercepting point as well. Or rather, let me see if I can draw that from this side. Let me see if I can make that happen from this side. Okay, so I wouldn't want to lose a lot of my elephant. So putting the elephant in this intercepting point and leaving the moon here, the moment I crop it that way, it automatically gives you a feeling that the elephant is sitting right here enjoying the view of the moon. Except unlike when it was looking like the elephant is just sitting in an open desert with the moon up in the sky, and looking at it right now, it simply drives the message that the elephant is sitting right here looking at the moon. And that is the story the creator of this image wanted to create. The creator of this image wanted to create that the elephant is here enjoying the view. Why? Because there is a rule of third here. So when next you pick up your camera and you want to shoot, ask yourself, how do I place my object in a way that it complements the rule of third? I think I have another image here for that illustration here. Look at it, another image here. So looking at this image, you can see the lines running over the image. These lines are simply just to show how you can position your object in your frame to make it look Very, very beautiful, because human eye is always drawn to those interception points, even when you don't know you are looking at it. So the moment you create it consciously and someone looks at your image, the person immediately sees the elephant first, and the mind tells the person the elephant is looking at the moon. So moving to the next one we have is very important, the leading line. So the reason I brought this all into Photoshop is so that it will be very easy for illustrative purposes and all of that. Now, leading line is simple, very, very simple. Using lines to draw attention into your image. Using line that you can find. It can be vertical lines, it could be horizontal lines. Just lines that runs through your frame to draw attention to your image. Now, in this particular image, I want you to be looking at this particular area. I want you to be looking at this particular area as a photographer. I didn't shoot this. I'm just using this for illustration. So I want you to be looking at this area as a photographer. I could have just cropped the image. Let's try cropping without those lines to still lead you there. We'll have a lot of leading lines working here. Let me see if I can reduce them as much as I can, so that we'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, so looking at it, it still has those leading lines. Okay, so the leading line is simply these lines flowing through, pointing upwards. These ones flowing from here, pointing downwards. So the moment you look at this image, all these little lines that you are looking at here and patterns that are repeating will immediately draw your eyes towards the end of this image. Look at this illustration. Let me show you. Let me find it. Okay, hang on a bit. All right, so look at this illustration over here. The way that this grid was drawn in such a way that it pulls your eyes into the object. Let me show you something quickly. So I'm going to load up my layers. Yeah, because I think this is in a PNG format. Beautiful. So I'm going to drag this and place it over any of those objects so that you see the way the lines will immediately pull your eyes into what I'm talking about. Look at it. So the moment I place this over this object, you see that the main aim of this photograph is to get your eyes to look at this person moving right here. But the shooter of this image had to use all the leading lines he's seen in the frame. Look at the way the lines are flowing right. Let me try to see if I can convert this to a red color or maybe white so that it will be very, very visible. Yeah, okay, so I think white will make more sense. Let's see. Okay, beautiful. See the way the white lines are flowing down, and immediately your eyes go straight to the guy walking on the eye. The reason is because of all the leading lines you are seeing. Let me also use it for another illustration. I think I have some other images I would want to use to show you the leading lines I'm talking about. Okay, so look at this one. We have this one. Okay, so this is another leading line that also has the rule of third working right here. So let me just convert this white to red since we already have a lot of white on the image. Okay, so looking at this image right now, this is our object. So let me drag this to this place so that we will have a clear understanding. So this is the people that we are shooting. So I'm going to drag this out so that it will be long enough to show us the lines we are talking about. Okay, beautiful. Okay, just give me a minute to get that working. I'm going to crop it, or rather cut. I'm going to convert this into a smart object, then cut it into half. Yeah, like that. So I'm going to delete this. This wouldn't work. Let me rasterize. So I'm going to slash that. All right, so let's open up this one now and drag it. Okay, so this is our object right here. Still need to get that out. A minute, please. Okay, so this is our object right here. These are our leading lines, the poles on the floor. Look at the line down here. So I want to use this as an illustration to show you what I'm talking about. So the moment I drag this towards them and position it in the center, you see it immediately align with all the lines flowing down. Look at the line flowing down here. Look at the line flowing down here. I think it's not touching the floor, right? Look at the line flowing towards the floor. You see that every single thing rather in this frame is very, very intentional towards drawing your eyes to these two guys walking on the street. So one more thing I wanted to draw your eyes to in this shot is the rule of third at work here. Look at the rule of third at work here. So if I try cropping that a little, so I'm positioning them in the rule of thirds. So if I crop it this way right now, it becomes a rule of third composition, no longer leading lines. Why? Because we have them in the intercepting point of this rule of third. We'll have them right here, while we'll have a lot of space, but we'll have them right here. So the moment you look, your eyes go straight to them as well. So this brings us to the same thing I said at the beginning of the video. It's all the elements and the way you position your image in front of your camera to draw the message and the visual impact you want to have to drive it home. Okay, so we have other illustrations. Let me see. We already looked at this and we already looked at that. All right, so let's look at the very next thing we have on our list. Okay, so this is our foreground. This is foreground, which is the next thing we are looking at. Using your foregrounds to draw message and drive home the message you are trying to tell with your image. Okay, so looking at this image right here, let me try creating a vignette so that it will be very, very easy for us to see what I'm trying to say. Yeah, hold on. Okay, so I'm going to pick up my brush. Just quickly create a separation. This is not actually a professional vignette. Yeah. Okay, so I just wanted to create that separation so we can see exactly what I'm talking about. Now, looking at this image, you know that the person that was shot in this image is this man over here, this pastor over here, holding up the currency in his hands, holding up the currency in his hands. But to tell the story of this particular scene, we need to be able to draw in elements, tell exactly what he is doing, and that is why the shooter had to bring in these two individuals holding other currencies and still having other people here. So these people here shows that one, he is talking to some people, two, these people complemented what he's doing and they are telling the message of what he's trying to do. So looking at this image already, if you are used to Christianity, you will know at once that this is an offering section, Why? Because of the foreground we have here. So these people right here, they are the foregrounds. Why? He is the object that we are shooting. But we need the foregrounds to be able to tell the story of the objects that we are shooting. That's exactly how this works. There are other images I have here that also tell the same story. Yeah, looking at this as well. This is the person in the picture. So I think I'm going to quickly crop that in so that it can exactly show what I'm talking about very well. All right, so I can even position him in the thoughts. Yeah, like that, something like that. Okay, so looking at this image, this is the object that we are shooting, but we needed to draw home the fact that he is singing to people. Of course, he's using a mic, people are raising her, so he's obviously probably singing. So looking at it, you know that he is singing, one, and that he is singing to people while they are expressing what he is doing. And to draw home what he is doing, the shooter had to shoot through these two people as a foreground to get to the background. Rather, to get to the main object, even down to the background over here. So this is exactly how these rules work, and it's going to work for you. This is another example of a foreground, looking at the way the shooter had to use these stones down here to draw an image, to draw your eyes towards the open sea that he is shooting right there. Okay, so the next thing we are looking at, this is another example, a beautiful example of foreground. Thank God I didn't miss this. This is another beautiful example of foreground. So this is the main object over here. But to show the expression, to show exactly that he is talking to people, to show even the size of the congregation, the shooter had to get all these people down here to complement the single message that this image is talking about. So looking at this image right now, from here, let's say if it was cropped like this. Sorry, I'm doing that. I'm going to take it back. So if this image was cropped, maybe something like this, I'm trying to avoid all the humors in the image. So you probably wouldn't see this image. You probably wouldn't see this image as a public speaking personality. But the moment he has a foreground to work with, you know that he is talking to a crowd, that this is a public figure. So that is exactly how this really, really works. Okay, so let's go straight to the next thing. The same thing here, your foregrounds, the main object. So foreground is a very powerful skill or very powerful technique you can always use as an event photographer, as a church photographer, or any kind of photography you do, especially that has to do with crowd, to draw attention to the main object in your frame. So the next thing we are looking at right here is your aperture. Which in other words, you can call your shallow depth of field. So what is shallow depth of field? It simply means focusing on your object so that the background gets blurred out. So the reason we called it your aperture is because this is a technique that you achieve using your aperture most of the times. You achieve it using your aperture most of the times. Of course, you can also use your lens, depending on the lens you are using to achieve this, but the best technique to use it for, the best thing to use to achieve this is your aperture. So it simply means shooting with a very high aperture 1.2, 2.2, and focusing very closely on one particular object to the extent that it blurs out everything behind. So looking at this image, you do not need anybody to tell you that this is the photograph, that these ones are the background, these ones are the foreground. See the way everywhere is blurred out, and that is beautiful. And I'm suspecting this image was also placed in the rule of third. Look at it in the intercepting line. Look at the background in the intercepting line. Look at the lines here. Look at the lines here. Look at the lines here. Leading lines. So you see that all this thing comes together to even produce a very nice image. They all come together to produce a very nice image. So the next thing we are looking at right here is our negative space. So I'm going to load up the image I needed to use to illustrate that beautiful. So negative space simply means pulling in more attention, using intentionally placing your object in such a way that it has space, especially where the front is facing or where the face is facing, so that when you look at it, something tells you, you get the impression that he or she is either going somewhere or he or she is looking at somebody. So if I crop this image like this, let me say I want to have equal space at both the right hand side and the left hand side like this. So when you look at this image, you can just simply say that she stood and posed. You can't tell any other thing about it except that she just stood and posed. But the moment we have this, you can immediately tell that she was walking when the photographer took this shot. Why? You have a lot of negative space in front of her. This negative space tells the story that she is either going somewhere or that she's facing somewhere. So there's another one I have here that, yeah, looking at this one, the young man is facing this way. So if we had cropped this like this will obviously just become a close-up or a portrait shot that doesn't really have much to it. But the moment we gave it that space, we could see the negative space that we have here. So looking at this, you can easily tell that he is looking at someone. This is a technique that a lot of filmmakers use as much as they can in filmmaking. Why? Just to draw your eye and give you the cinematic impression that he is looking at something. He can stand here and make a lot of gesticulations and expressions, and you would think that he is speaking to a crowd. Why? There is a space in front of him. You would think that there are people there that he is talking to. Yeah, so that's basically how to use your rule of space or your negative space while shooting your images. So the next thing we are going to look at, which is a very important aspect of composition, is your first perspective. So what does that mean? It simply means using low or high angles, especially with a very wide angle lens, to shoot your images in such a way to buttress a particular object in the frame. Is also a composition that you use to show superiority or inferiority in your image. For example, looking at this image now, you are having tall building, she was not tall. So if this image was shot from the front or from, let's say, eye level, you would automatically think that the person shooting is shooting the building, just including a human being. But because the shooter bent down and made the object a little more profound and tall, you will literally know that the shooter shot this lady using the building as a background. Look at this one as well. This is a clear indication of superiority. So looking at this image, you didn't nobody to tell you that this is the boss, of this whole factory. Whether she is the boss or not the boss, the image is telling us that we are looking at the bust of the factory. Why? It was shot from under, gives her that elevated feel as if she's addressing her co-workers or her workers in the company. So it gives her that bossy vibe, that bossy look. Looking at the whole image, you can even see our leading lines at work here. Look at the lines flowing down. Look at the lines flowing down. Look at the one flowing into her head. So all that even comes together to pull your eyes into her and tell you that this is the boss that was shot here. This is another expression of first perspective, this one. So looking at this image, you need nobody to tell you that this is the supervisor. Even if she is the supervisor or not, you need nobody to tell you that this is the supervisor. Having her co-workers in the background and having her stand behind here looking like she is trying to inspect them, you need nobody to tell you that she is the supervisor. I guess when she is the same size with everybody in this frame and you just slap them, you would think she is a co-worker. You would think she is a co-worker. There is something else I wanted to show you. I didn't remember to include that into our illustration. Yeah, something like that. I wanted to show you something quickly. One more composition rule that is not always talked about, although it can work in every single composition setting, but I think it's just a complement to composition to draw more attention into your image. There are two things you can use, no matter the composition you are using. You can use a shallow depth of field. You can also use your brightness. So let me just try and see if I can make a quick selection of the man over here, just quickly, so I can just show you how to use your shallow depth of field, your shallow depth of field to even draw more attention into this beautiful foreground image that was shot here. Okay, so looking at this image, I'm going to feather this by maybe like by 6 and try blurring the background out. Because I'm going to select inverse, so I'll try blurring the background out, the foreground rather. So let me try blurring them out a little. So you see the moment I start blurring them out, you see the way the image will start receiving attention immediately. Why? Of course, they are still in the foreground, but because they are not in focus, this is the first place your eye goes to. The next thing I want us to look at using this same technique is our brightness using vignette effect. So you can go to your filter, go to camera raw, and let me quickly use the vignette effect in camera raw to do that. So I'll just come to effect and pull down my vignette. Yeah, like this. Okay, so that is also including the man. Okay, so I'm going to discard that. I'll try doing it manually. So I'm using my curves, darken down the whole scene, and using my brush to unveil this particular area. So the moment I unveil this particular area, like that. So looking at the image, you automatically see this man first. Why? Because of all the brightness that has been crushed. You automatically see the pastor in the altar preaching. I think this is a church setting. You automatically see the pastor in the church podium rather preaching, because we have the brightness control. Look at it before your eyes is falling everywhere. The moment you darken that, you start looking at the brightest part of the image first before you look at the dark areas. Thank you for watching this amazing video. I believe you learned a lot in this particular video. If you have any question concerning composition, there is anything you do not understand in all that I just explained, don't hesitate to go to the comment section and hit down your question. We will try as much as possible to answer those questions to you right there in the comment section. Thank you for watching this amazing video. Do make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will be bringing more of these basic tutorials to you right from here till retouching in the subsequent videos to come. So do make sure you have your notification bell turned on so that you will not get to miss any single video that we'll be bringing to you from now on. Thank you once again for watching. See you on the next one.